Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this very short webinar. This is not my usual tool. We use Adobe Connect here a lot for webinars, but I think it's very interesting to experiment with these new low-cost or free tools. I'm not quite sure how many people are viewing at the moment. There is, if you click on the YouTube link that's on the video showing within Canvas, it'll bring you into YouTube, and there is a chat area. There is also the Twitter feed, or the Twitter handle hashtag moocs4all, which you can give me some feedback on. But either way, I want to use this to record it, and I will be talking about that later as well. So let's get going with the slides. Now, the first thing I have to do here in my Google Hangouts is start sharing my screen. Okay, let's do that. Screen share, and I'm going to do it. The one with my PowerPoint slides on it. Okay, so you should see my PowerPoint display slide there, plus my actual Google Hangouts screen. You probably see that as well. But I'm going to put this up here out of the way. It's handy if you have two screens, by the way. You can see more of what's going on. And let's get on with the show. Okay. Okay, so we just have a few slides here just to introduce. So this is about using webinars for MOOCs. Our webinar is a useful tool in MOOCs. So all I've done is I've put together some slides, and I'm going to go through the slides, and that's simple. So we're getting rid of the whole editing process to a large extent. So this presentation is what's a webinar, what are the advantages of webinars, what technology is involved, maybe using webinars with guest presenters, and some of the systems available. That's what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so what's a webinar? Well, it's an interactive live online presentation. It should be possible. I'm broadcasting out to you now, but you should be able to give me some feedback on a back channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, there is a little chat box, and you're logged into YouTube. There is a little chat box that you can use to the right of the video, and you can give me some feedback there and ask questions. But I've also got the Twitter channel going. Let's see if I can find it here and show it to you. So I've got the moocs4all Twitter channel here, but nobody's commented on it yet. So it's there if you do want to make comments, and I'll check that every so often. Okay, as well as the YouTube chat box. Okay, so it's an interactive live online presentation. It generally is less than an hour. There's no definition of these things, but people don't tend to do longer webinars. To be honest with you, I think an hour is probably a bit too long for people's attention. It would need to be very interactive with lots of discussion to make it work over an hour. And I've messages coming in on my phone even here. Okay, I seem to be maybe sharing the wrong screen. Okay, so let's stop sharing. Okay, I'm just going to share the screen again. Okay, I've shared the wrong screen. That's complications of having two screens. Okay. So you should be seeing the correct screen at this stage. Okay, so it's, as I say, going over an hour is probably just too much. It's not asymmetrical. It's not like a meeting where you have one-on-one. You could have 1 to 20, 1 to 100, 1 to 3. It's not. The message is coming mostly from one side, but there should be some channel to get information back as well. Okay, so it's really just slides and audio. That's the minimum. You have to question yourself, do I need a webcam or not for a webinar? I personally think it's nice. And one of the things that I'm a little bit disappointed in Google Hangouts is I can show you my screen, but I can't show you my camera, so I can't. I'm waving my hands around at the moment, but you can't see that. because I think me waving my hands around is an important part of my communication. And the text back channel. Now, what are the advantages of webinars? I'm moving on 2 screens here. Sorry about this. Actually, I have a point in this that it can be tricky to edit, and what you're trying to do is avoiding edits, but I could consider editing later to get rid of a few hiccups that do occur when you're doing it. Of course, probably better planning would, or more investment in planning and being familiar with the technology would probably help as well. And I am using a webinar system here, or a conferencing system here, that I'm not terribly familiar with. So ease of creation. It's easy to create a webinar because really it's really just about slides and talking and explaining and a little bit of feedback. There's not a lot to it. Access to guest presenters is interesting because it means that you can get other people to present in your MOOC, and you generate recordings and generate content. These can be presentations that they make, or they could be interviews that they do. So there's an advantage to it. And I would say that our extended virtual symposium that we're running in parallel to this is really an example of how we're bringing in guest lecturers into this program. There can be a certain amount of interactivity, so it's social. It's not like talking to just a camera, or it can be much better than just talking to a recording. You generate reusable recordings, and the cost is pretty cheap, particularly if you use something like use something like Google Hangouts on Air. I suppose you could use Facebook Live as well, and actually Hangouts on Air is now called YouTube Live, and I haven't quite got used to that. Is there another one, Periscope or something from Twitter? Okay, what sort of technology is involved, and what sort of can you add to this? There's a photograph of some booths that we have in Sligo here, where I suppose this might be considered a little bit high-end. You could do it simpler than this. Having 2 screens is handy. Having a screen that you can write on. Where can I write on this screen? See this? I can have a screen that you can write on. I've got a pen here. So that might be nice to have the second screen, and especially one of those. But I would imagine that's not the sort of thing you might do at home, although I think Salman Khan used something like this to create his videos. So if you've got an extra €1,000, you can buy one of those screens and do it. But if you're in an institution you want to do it, it might be worth getting. It's not that expensive. Over here we have a visualizer, and that's really just a camera pointing down at paper where you can write. You'd need a web-based conferencing system, so we use Adobe Connect. It doesn't cost the institution any extra really to use it for webinars. We've already paid for it, so we can keep the cost of down. But there are free ones available, like YouTube Live and Facebook Live, maybe. There's a few others I'll mention later, actually. So you use your screen for application sharing. You need good audio. This microphone, I have a microphone in front of me here on the desk. It's a pretty good one. We're having a little bit of problems with it, but hope you're hearing this okay. There's always a question, do you need a camera or not? Do you need to add video? It does allow for spontaneous. I'm trying to be as spontaneous as possible here, even though I'm not getting a lot of feedback. Let me just check our Twitter feed here, see is there anything coming on the Twitter feed. No, nothing yet. Or maybe I need to refresh that. Or do I just hit refresh button? I think it tells you if there's more stuff coming in, so you can refresh it. It says at the top. Okay, nothing coming in on Twitter there. I'll just show you the YouTube as well. So there I'm looking at, I have a separate window open in YouTube looking at what's been broadcast. Okay, I'm just looking down here in the chat area over to the right here. Oh, I can't write on that. Okay, it's over on the right-hand side of that window. If I just say, hi, anyone out there? I can't spell. So as you can see, you can be quite spontaneous for what it's worth. So no responses there yet. I'll just take this off to the other screen. It is handy having two screens. So with the text chat, allowing people to speak to you on audio probably really wouldn't be suitable for a MOOC. But if it was an open online course, maybe you could, and you were giving a webinar to 10 or 20 people. What happens is a lot of people don't make it to the live event, but they make it to the recording. So it could be quite a cozy little live event. You can do some other tricks like polls to make it interactive as well. I'm not going to talk about that here. Those are built in some of the advanced tools, but you might have to give them a link to a poll and say, go onto your phone or go onto your, open another window and take the poll. Okay, so where are we now? Using guest presenters. Actually, if you use guest presenters, you really need to have a system to do it. You need to agree the topic, the date, and the time with the presenter. Give the presenter good guidelines of what they need to do, particularly if they're not used to technology. Probably need to test out your system with somebody who's not familiar. Also, might be worth meeting the presenter a day or two before just to practice and to train on just to make sure they can use the system. But make sure they use the exact same technology they're going to use on the day, because you can never predict something may be different. And then just deliver, meeting them maybe about 15 minutes, 20 minutes before. What we're doing in the extended virtual symposium is probably a good example of it. Now we're using Adobe Connect because I want it to be absolutely bulletproof, not like this today. But because this is on low cost development, I felt I needed to practice what I preach and use something really cheap. But I'm sure I would get better at this in time. Okay, what sort of systems are available for low cost? YouTube Live. I should probably have added Facebook Live, although I'm not fully sure what the functionality of Facebook Live is, or Periscope. Can they do screen sharing? Can they do anything other than just the camera? Big Blue Button is one that you can host yourself. It's I think it's open source software and it integrates with Moodle. Zoom.us is one that I hear people talking about. Now, Zoom.us, there is a charge for it, but at small scale, I think up to 50 or something like that. I don't think there is a charge, so you can use that. I would say, again, if your course isn't massive, if it's an open online course, a low-cost open online course, 20 people might be as many as you need in a webinar, and the recording could be very useful. Zoom.us has plenty of features that Google Hangouts and that don't have, or YouTube Live doesn't have. Okay, there are commercial systems like Adobe Connect, Citrix, GoToWebinar, Blackboard, Collaborate, and these may be in your college already. If you're working in a college or your institution, they may be in there already, and you'll be able to use those with minimal marginal cost. So it doesn't cost a lot. Now, just going to finish on this slide. I think it's my last slide. Is what about webinar technology for content development? One of the things I like about something like YouTube Live is as soon as I'm finished, when I say stop broadcast here, within 5 minutes, this presentation will be available on YouTube. That's really, it's really low cost, not just in terms of the amount of money I've got to spend, but the amount of effort I make. So if I get used to using YouTube Live and I'm able to do it without much effort, just really the effort of getting my slides together or whatever I'm going to present, whatever I'm going to display, it takes away a lot of the other work. It just gets published, and then you can take that link and drop it in your course. In fact, what you can do is you can put the links, like we have done here, we put the links to the live event in your course when you're building your course, and then the links to the recordings will automatically be there. There is limited editing, which in a way could be seen as an advantage because you try and get it right first time, because reducing your workload is very important. As we'll be talking about, or it is important to lower your ambitions in terms of production quality if you want to cut your costs and cut your effort. So you could create short recordings and, as I say, prepare well and tolerate mistakes. Okay, and that's it for the webinar. We'll hang on a few seconds here, a few minutes, to see if there's any feedback, which probably won't be, but so we've generated a recording. Any comments in the actual course or wherever this is embedded on YouTube or wherever you see this, any comments would be welcome. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Now let's check this for comments. I think I actually... Oh, Angelica Gunderman and Mustafa both online. Good. It's good that there was somebody online. I probably should have checked that earlier. It probably would have made it easier for me for making the presentations. Have you any questions there? Let me just check the... No. So the YouTube Live is being used. I feel in a way I should apologize for the... you know what? I'm going to go back to the screen because I stopped sharing so you can see me. Hi, guys. Sorry you couldn't see me during that. The lights aren't so good here. You see me any better in that light? So if you have any questions, just put it in the YouTube there. This is our little studio. I probably feel I should take the camera and show you around it. We're just experimenting with a low-cost studio. Towards the end of this course, I do actually talk about institutional things you might do. So maybe a studio like this might be something that your institution could develop quite cheaply. And we're sort of making it up as we go along here. We wouldn't be experts in building a studio, so we're making plenty of mistakes. I would say the lighting in here isn't that good. I'm trying to experiment with the idea that we can actually use a regular board that teachers are used to, so it makes it easy. They don't have to be fiddling around with writing on special writing devices. This is what a lot of teachers like to do. And if we can get that to work and get the lighting right and get the pen right and everything. Thanks, Angelica. You mentioned there a good hint to YouTube Live. Now, I have to say, I haven't found it as smooth to use or as functional as other systems, but it is certainly cheap, and I suspect that it might be a lot easier to use once you get used to it. I sort of feel that you could build a whole MOOC using YouTube Live, that you could get all your presentations together, particularly if this is a course that you give to your own students. Maybe just say you're a regular teacher, you give courses to students, you get all those slides. Recommend you probably chop them up into smaller chunks. So you might give several 30-minute webinars per week. Some people might attend them live, and some people might just listen to the recordings. And possibly what you might do is almost like might be doing here is give the presentation and have the discussion afterwards. And I think if you keep the presentation short enough, that may work. Now, in actual fact, just a word to the wise. YouTube Live has a delay of about 20 seconds. So you can't have a very lively conversation between you and people on there. If it gets massive, it probably will be quite lively. But I've suggested that people respond to me, but it takes a while for it to come in on for that message to get out and for them to respond. So there doesn't seem to be any more comments there. So here you have it, warts and all. Do you think we could get this up to a higher standard? Could you get this up to a higher standard and make it as easy to use? And it certainly is cheap. So what I'm going to do now is just wave goodbye to you and stop the broadcast. It's been nice to know that somebody came into the webinar, because we really are working at quite a small scale. And I hope people who listen to it on the recording find it useful. Thanks very much. I'm nearly inclined not even to edit any of this, so people see every part of it, warts and all. I will listen to a recording and see see how bad it is, we'll say. Okay, been nice chatting to you. Bye now.